to Behind the Smiles with Dr. Sharnell Myles and Embark Behavioral Health. Today, I am so excited to have our guest, Mr. Derrick Bowles. He is the Executive Director with Crossroads in Ogden, Utah. And today we are going to just sit and talk about mental health in sports. First, I have to start out saying, so today I toured your program and it is absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you.
Phenomenal.
I appreciate that.
I've never seen or toured a therapeutic program specifically for boys like your program. So why don't you start out telling us who you are and tell us a little bit about your program.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been a life work, right, with my partners and I and starting Crossroads. So anytime we can show it off, right, or let people see what we're doing, it's such a privilege. So thank you. Thank you for coming here. And we got a snowy day.
Yes.
And so I kind of feel like we're just cozied up and can have a nice conversation. So yeah, we started Crossroads going on 18 years now. Dr. Sam Dawn and I had met at graduate school and kind of gone our separate ways and came back together kind of under some of the same concerns we had for adolescent treatment, and specifically what we were seeing with youth and the way treatment was going for young folks. And at the core of that piece was a real belief in moving away from a punitive model to something where if we had to go somewhere, what would it look like?
Yeah.
And a big piece of that is just how active lives we lived, the kind of adventure-based lives we were living. We just believed if we could create a place where kids who are struggling could come experience some of those things while in treatment, we could affect their lives in a lot of different ways. To be honest, I think in the genesis of it, in the beginning of it, we were a little naive in what an impact it was going to be.
Right.
And at the time, there wasn't the research that has now come and matched with what we believed was happening, but in a way that I think has been really profound. And so we're primarily a substance abuse program, a recovery program that we built around adventure-based sports. Yeah. So we're bringing folks in, young kids between the ages of 14 and 17 to Ogden, Utah, which is at the cornerstone of the outdoors, right? Ogden is a mecca for outdoor adventure sports. And that was kind of our vision in starting Crossroads. And at the time, it was interesting. We got a lot of, what are you doing? You're going to do what with these guys? You can't take these kids skiing or out on a lake or, we just had a lot of folks just unaware, I think, or maybe uneducated on what it really would be like to allow kids to have some real normalcy while experiencing acuity. And that became a big drive for us.
So, I've been here in Ogden for just about 24 hours. When I arrived here, it was not snowing, but I could see the snow-capped mountains. Now it is snowing. It is absolutely beautiful here. I like to call it a Hallmark city.
I like
You've
that.
seen the Hallmark movies.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't think as a kid, as a teenager, I could have even imagined the opportunity to come to a place like this if I needed help.
Right.
And not only, probably be thousands of miles away from home, but actually want to come to a program like yours. And that speaks volumes. I had the opportunity to speak with some of your clients and I was blown away. I shared that with you. I was blown away because the way they described your program and the level of safety, the therapeutic work that they're doing, we don't get that oftentimes from teenagers, especially teenage boys. So talk a little bit about that in terms of the philosophy behind working with teenage boys who have, experiences with substances, who are away from home, but not only doing the therapeutic work, but enjoying doing the therapeutic work.
I'm so glad you picked up on that. I think when again, going back to that initial design, we wanted to create something if we had to go. So that was kind of the piece where every decision we made, even down to the rooms and the lights and the pool table and the ping pong table, everything was that would help this be better, right? If I had to go somewhere, if I could do this thing, I think I could get behind that, right? And so that was the genesis and the beginning of designing Crossroads. Is let's take it away from this punitive, somewhat like we're going to restrict you or we're going to punish you, and let's just see what you like. Why don't we just start with what you like to do, and just think about skateboarding and what traditionally skateboarding has looked like in communities, right? This has been somewhat of a counterculture kiddo that hasn't totally fit in. And think about if he's going to a place where they're saying, not only do we see you in that, we want to support you in that. And the difference from day one walking through the door between, oh man, I like this. You see me, right? Which is what we all want.
Right.
And you see me because you see what I like to do. And so that became really powerful for us in what we have really realized, which is the most important part of this whole process is, can we make connected relationships? And if you can connect to young people, and if you're genuine in doing that, that changes the whole process of treatment from day one. Right. I'm not fighting them for 60 days just to get here or to trust me. They somewhat trust me because I got an independent sweatshirt. I got some J's on and I do what they do. Even though I'm 50, I still can go bomb a mountain and there's some connection in that. So that has been just a difference in we're saving a ton of time not fighting. Right. Now, most kids want to be home. Right. And I think as clinicians, as providers in this world, if we could do all this work at home, we would. We want to get them home as soon as it makes sense. But knowing that that's not working, then we want to create something as close to home as we can. And that's really driven us in designing Crossroads and how we work with these young guys.
So you briefly touched on just the relationship aspect. So, at Embark, we do a ton of experiential work with boys, girls, teens, young adults. But at the heart of it is that developmental work and systems work, right? Definitely. We are really focusing in on the relationship, the therapeutic relationship, but also our clients' relationship with their caregivers, their parents, whomever it may be. And we know the science behind a sound relationship, that therapeutic relationship, and creating change. So talk a little bit more about that in terms of the therapeutic work and really honing in on the relationship.
You bet. That idea of you're going to affect somebody's life, right? Just this idea of we're going to sit across from another person and try to change something difficult for them. That has to start with, can you trust me? Can we be connected in that, right? Now, there are a lot of avenues to do that. I really believe that there are a lot of ways to get ultimately to that relationship. And you probably should be savvy in approaching all of those ways. For us, one of that really, really easy way was to do the things they did. And for a 17-year-old kid to sit across from someone who you just bombed a mountain with, you just snowboarded and you got into flow state, you got into a connection through this experience. This in the beginning, I don't think we even realized how profound that was going to be. We felt like, okay, we're going to give them new adventures and new experiences and some natural highs. We knew we wanted to connect in relationships. We never could have guessed what it would be like after we did that, how good the work was going to be. And what's really cool is, as you mentioned, the research, now we're seeing why, right? Now that we're able to map the brain and we understand the nature of things like dopamine, right? And when you have a shared dopamine dump, right? This is why people love to go on vacation with family. That's why we remember vacations is because we're having these shared experiences with our families that draw us closer. well, this is what's happening, and we're doing it kind of on steroids, right? We're doing it with a tremendous amount of dopamine and norepinephrine and serotonin because we're engaging these adventure sports, which then allows for us to have a more connected relationship.
Yeah.
That does, again, give us some permission to be more confrontive at times.
Right.
It does allow us to say, hey, that's not working. That's going to cause you problems. And it's not met with the resistance.
Yeah.
It's not met with, you don't understand me,
Right.
so you don't get to say that to me. It comes with, let me think about that. Let me consider that. Yeah. And in particular, working with adolescent boys, a lot of boys with oppositional defiant disorder, with ADD.
Yeah.
This is a back way in to break through that resistance.
Yeah.
And it's been incredibly powerful.
Yeah. So let's stay there for a minute. You know, we were talking earlier, and I think I was sharing, I'm a daredevil. Yeah. Like I'll do just about anything if it's, you know, I don't have too much experience with skiing. Sure. But in terms of water sports, and I am right there. And if I haven't done it before, I probably will try it. And there's this natural fear, right? A healthy fear. But when you think about the kids who you're serving, and these are kids who are sliding down mountains and snowboarding. And, you know, when you snowboard, you don't have the poles. So you're just going and, you know, maybe some of them are doing different tricks or what have you. And even when I watch that on television, I'm like, wow, there has to be a certain amount of just excitement.
There you go.
Nerve, fearlessness. But then on the flip side, we're talking about teens who may be struggling, right, in a regular setting where they don't have to use the same skill set, and maybe sometimes they do. So how do you explain that? How do you really explain that?
So there's two processes there that I think are really, really important. One, it's the nature of a lot of their wiring to be impulsive, right, to be risk-seeking, right. Part of what we know about ADD, ADHD, what we know a little bit about processing splits, right? Some of these things that we really see is that there's this lack of executive functioning that lends towards I hate being bored. As a matter of fact, we know now that being bored for kids with ADD physically causes them stress. They physically feel pain when they're bored. Right. And so what happens is then they become adventure seeking, or we use the term risk seeking, right, in therapy. But for us, it is really just adventure seeking. I'm looking to shift how I feel or what's going on for me. So maybe I'll do this exciting thing. Maybe I'll try this substance. Maybe I'll steal this thing. Cause this problem. For us, we want to take that same impulse, that same desire, and then to channel it into something productive, something that isn't maladaptive. Meaning that when they do it, there's not going to be consequences. Now, there could be some physical consequences. You can break a collarbone or a wrist, but those things are all fixable as compared to, you know, crime and you know, substance and the side effects of addiction. So we're wanting to take what they come wired with, but to then connect with adaptive things as compared to maladaptive. That then does something that's really powerful. What we know about motivation, right, and how to motivate people, one of the key components in that is mastery. I got to get good at something. And if I'm on the process of getting good at something, I'm more motivated to do that thing. So my office it sits out, has a big window, and it sits out right to where our skate features are. And I remember doing a session with a set of parents. I was on the phone and I watched a kid out the back window try a trick. I saw him for 30 minutes try the same trick over and over. And I'm just watching him. I see him get frustrated. I know he's swearing. I watch him chuck the board, right? But then I saw him land the trick. And he threw his arms up. He skated around. No one was around. Right? He's out by himself. He punches this trick, throws his arms up. I can feel it across the yard how elated he is. And you know what he did? He went right back to trying a new trick. but just opposite. So he's going to do that same thing, but he's going to try to do it backwards now.
Yeah.
And I was struck by that in the sense of everywhere else in this kiddo's life, he may not have that distress tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
And right here, he's learning a skill that we want to talk about in therapy. He's learning by trying this trick.
Right.
And so we're tapping into ability to create mastery,
Mm-hmm.
sense of self, motivation through a sport that he wants to do.
Yeah.
And that becomes such a powerful lesson when I do a therapy session. I did with him,
Right.
and I talked to him about what I saw,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, listen, you can do hard things.
Yeah.
You can do your school. It's frustrating, but
Mm-hmm.
you can do it if you stick to it.
Right.
Those are the lessons that can be learned through recreation and through sports that very few things can teach in that way.
Yeah. So, most of the boys who come to your program may have some experience in sports or what have you. Talk about the effectiveness of this type of therapy with kids who may not have any experience with sports.
Perfect.
What does discharge look like for them? What is that skill set that they are now able to build through this type of therapeutic program and be effective even once they return home?
Yeah, I would, go with me a little bit and imagine a kiddo that is at home and hasn't done much.
Mm-hmm.
He's 15, 16, never was really able to do, team sports. So he never made the team. Right. Maybe because of that, lacked a friend group. Didn't get into a lot of things, maybe put on a little weight, right? Or just didn't ever feel like he was an athlete.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then that kid starts using substances for the first time because immediately he gets a friend group.
Yeah.
And some of those friend groups, in some of our sports are counterculture. So you do have kids, skateboarding and snowboarding. There's a draw there.
Right.
But oftentimes those kids are not skating. They're walking around with their skateboards.
Right.
If they're smoking too much or using too much. And that kiddo comes, and for the first time in his life, he's around a group of adults and young adults who are doing these sports and are finding a space for him.
Right.
He doesn't have to be great at them. I would say less than a third of our kids who come into Crossroads have ever been on a board of any kind or have ever mountain biked or rock climbed like this.
Right.
They're not doing this in the city of Chicago or New York. And so here you have a kiddo who's never done that. And for the first time in his life, he does good at something and he starts getting better at something and he develops a sense of self around accomplishment in just a sport that he can then go home and do.
Right.
He can take his skateboard and go skate in the city. He can find a mountain bike trail in a park in a city. He can, there's tons of indoor climbing now.
Right.
So things that he never was exposed to, things that he never would have tried. And just by trying them, and this is all that we ask.
Yeah.
Right? We're not saying you have to have experience in these sports. We just are asking you're willing to try.
Right.
And then in the back of our heads, we're saying, let's go. Because we're going to expose you to some stuff that you've never done before. You're going to be on a lake and in a mountain lake where you're going to learn to wake surf or wakeboard, or you're going to go mountain biking in places you've never seen or could imagine. And we can start at your skill level.
Right.
Just this week, brand new student come in, has never been on skis. He spends all morning on the lower bunny hill, right, is what we call it. I promise you at the end of the day, his stoke level, how excited he was, what he did that day was equal to my guys doing those backflips.
Wow.
And, so it allows for meeting them where they're at, but the outcome can be almost identical as if they had been doing it their whole lives.
Yeah. So listening to you speak, a few words just keep resonating with me. Experience.
There you go.
Relationships or attunement, which is a big one.
It's massive.
Yeah. Just exposure.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And again, I think about my own experience very early in age, and it was exposure, which I think was one of those components that, still has me here today. Just being exposed to different cultures, different people.
There you go.
Different opportunities. And a lot of our teens, unfortunately don't experience that.
No doubt.
They don't experience that. So for you to have developed this program.
Yeah.
19 years later, still going strong. Awesome. You have families who are literally knocking at your door because they see the benefits. They understand the benefits and want your kids to attend your program. That is awesome. So we know something is working.
100%.
We know the program is working.
100%. I think for a parent, when they call and we're talking to them about the opportunity, right? And they're seeing that same, now imagine that same kid sitting in the basement and mom and dad have tried a lot of things to try to get them outdoors or to do something. And it's hard, right? It's hard as a parent because our kids are naturally look at when we're inviting them to do those things as criticism, right? Mom and dad want me to do this because they think I did it.
Right.
And so they're naturally oppositions to it, you know? And so when we talk to a parent and we're saying, listen, we can take him just where he's at. And even though he hasn't done it, give us a few months and, and he's going to be skiing. And that for a parent can be a lifeline that they didn't have before.
Right.
And this is just the flat out truth. You cannot ski or snowboard and be on your phone. Yeah. Right?
Absolutely.
You can't do those two things together. You can have someone filming, which could be cool, but what you can't do is do both. You can't be stuck in a world of social media and be living an adventure-based life. Yeah. Right? You're going to have to give that up to go experience that thing. And in today's culture, that is profound.
Yeah. Do the boys know that coming in?
Yes. They'll know they don't have their phones. Yeah. That's, to be honest.
That's a big thing. Think about all the kids that have total meltdowns or, 100%. Put a hole in the wall
100%.
Because they can't have their phone.
I have had kids choose another program because they said they could have the phone the first month. That's the only purpose in choosing. I'm like, we're going to go do all these things, but they want the phone. Yeah. And so it is a challenge, but like the kiddos you met today, they're not asking for their phones. Yeah. They're asking first to go ride, right? Let's go get on the mountain and do those things. And so it does change. It doesn't take long to change either. Yeah. It just takes the shift into exposure and creating that adventure-based mindset that then gets them away from the phone. Yeah.
And if you want to take it a step further, even with telephones, because, we also focus on technology and mental health. Right. And the use of technology can now also, to some extent, depending on the situation, be looked at as an addictive behavior.
No doubt. No
right?
doubt.
Same way as substance use. Yep. And so when you're talking about, the brain and addiction and, there's some very similar components there. And to be able to tackle both of those.
Without ever having to really say it's this.
There you go.
I don't have to say, give me your phone. Yeah. You just can't go do the thing on with your phone. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so it is this a way to work through that resistance piece as well. Now I do think there's some space in moderating it all. Right. And I do think that we live in a technology world. Right. It's part of it. And we're going to have kiddos that are going to learn to manage that. And that would be our ultimate goal. Yeah. But you don't manage it by saying no. Correct. You manage it by offering opportunities to do things they can't with the phone. And I think that long term will be the difference maker. Yeah. And you see that in pretty much even adult lives. Adults who live adventure-based lives aren't stuck on their phone. Yeah. They're just not. Yeah. They'll take a picture at the end and they'll post maybe what they did. But for the 8 hours they were doing the thing, they're not stuck on their phones.
Or if you're like me, you're handing it to the person on the side to say, can you record me? Or take plenty of photos, right?
Yeah, which I like, again, if you can get there's something really powerful about the connection of you're filming me doing this thing, right? As an adult or as a therapist, if we're on the mountain and we do film that trick and they stomp it and then we're watching it together, we're not stuck on the phone, but we're building a connection between your accomplishment and your experience. And I do think, when I work with families and parents, I really lean into parents using the technology as a way to connect instead of being afraid of it. Yeah. We just need the balance in it. And that's what what isn't happening.
Yeah.
The phone itself isn't the problem as much as how long they're on the phone.
On the phone, yeah. So you mentioned the families and connecting.
Yep.
So talk to me about the effectiveness of bringing the family into treatment, even when they are thousands of miles away.
Yep.
You know, are you doing it virtually? Do you have parents come to visit?
Yep.
How do parents really engage in adventure therapy the way you guys are really laying it out?
Yeah. I think that becomes a little bit of a roadblock.
Okay.
And it's when we want to help parents, right? Because they're not as able to do that as we are.
Okay.
But they're still able to do it. You can still do family ski trips. You can still learn to do some of those things.
Right.
What I'm interested in is helping parents embrace and engage and encourage the kiddo in that process.
Okay.
So that's really powerful, to be excited about their accomplishment in it, to see that without, judgment and just to let them do that. But, none of this works if we don't engage the family system. And so while it allows us to build the relationship, that in then turn gives us permission to engage the family system. Now we become aligned with mom and dad and the student.
Yeah.
And we're saying to the student, let's fix the family system. It may be not all your fault. Maybe there's some things that are your responsibility.
Right.
But if you can connect with me, can you trust that I can then help mom and dad look at some of their stuff? And in that piece, if they feel like they have an ally that sees them in context to the relationship with their family, can challenge mom and dad on some of their, maladaptive thinking or parenting ways. But then mom and dad, the biggest gift for mom and dad is when the kid says, I trust this guy.
Yeah.
That almost instantly gets mom and dad on the process as well. So that connected relationship with the adolescent then gives us the doorway to the family system as well.
Right.
And then we can challenge the unhealthy maladaptive thinking in family systems, and that then ultimately changes the outcomes.
Yeah.
But if we skipped that part, if we didn't do that part, it would be a real detriment.
Right.
Because the kiddo then coming home would be just stuck with the skateboard, and that's not enough.
Yeah. And again, looking at some of the programs that Embark has, like, again, the family, like, their client is there, but the family system is at the heart of the work that we are doing, right?
Absolutely.
And just like you said, if the family wasn't present, it would just be their kid coming home with a skateboard.
Yeah.
For some of our programs, it would be their kid coming home with a K9 or something else, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you support a family, or what's the outcome if there's a family who says, we really don't want to do this. We just want to bring our son, drop him off. Maybe we'll take a phone call here and there. But how do you work with the family where there is like really tough resistance for the caregivers to get involved?
Yeah. I mean, again, it probably is very, very similar in how we would work with that oppositional kiddo. And that is we gotta build the relationship. So that may mean that I have to do a little bit hand holding, we can call a lot of different things, but I just might have to be engaging that family much more consistently with much more information that lets them know this is changing things.
Okay.
Right? I got to roll with their resistance, meet them with their resistance. I do have to challenge the maladaptive and unhealthy interaction. So there may be some tougher calls, right? I mean, we got to do the harder work sometimes. But I think, again, I have found from most parents, if they believe that relationship is there with their son, it's an invite and a doorway to that relationship with them. And so in building that relationship, it is vicariously building it with parents.
Right.
But sometimes you have to meet that resistance head on. We want a lot of exposure to the family system. So in our first 90 days, we're asking mom and dad to come out as much as possible to spend a weekend. And we're doing a pre and post therapy session. We're doing a session to talk about what's going to happen, give some feedback and some coaching. And then we're going to come back and talk about what did happen and give some feedback and some coaching.
Good.
And so that's going to happen in the first 90 days. And then after that, in our long-term program, we're going to have visits pretty much once a month.
Okay.
And then they're going to extend in time until ultimately the last visit, we want to be as close as what it would look like at home before they came home.
Okay.
So curfews and rules and chores around the house, and then we really want that to be as self-driven without any therapeutic input, then we know we're close. Right? Wow, you just spent this 7-10 days. You tackled this difficulty without calling the therapist.
Yeah.
You came home on curfew. You're allowing your parents to parent you, and that gives us a roadmap to allow them to kind of re-engage.
Yeah.
So it's really hands-on.
Yeah.
It's a harder way to do it. But it seems to have been really effective.
Yeah. So I'm sitting here thinking, again, very experiential.
Yes.
For the client, experiential for the parent. Are the parents going hiking? Yes. Are they skiing? Are they snowboarding? What an amazing opportunity to even see, for the client, maybe to see their parent fail at something, and keep working at it until they could get it, or the system, the family coming together and succeeding at something experiential. How powerful,
That's it. Just to come out and say, and that's what we'll say oftentimes, we don't want to fix anything this weekend.
Yeah.
We want you to build some sort of memory. Go to Park City, go ski together, go do that hike. Let him show you what he's doing, let him show you, take him to the skate park and just let him show you what he's been doing. Yeah. We just want you to start building connected memories. We'll get to the hard stuff, but that's the start of it.
Yeah.
It is always a bonus. A lot of our families, I think, have the resources and have had access to be able to do a lot of those things. Right. And what I'll get oftentimes is, this is the first time he hasn't fought us. For the last 3 years, he's fought us on every ski trip. Yeah. And he went down every run and didn't complain this time. And that we got our kid back, So it's still in the adventure that they're building the memories and the connections. And so that's been really cool to see.
Yeah. I love hearing you say that it's in the adventure that they built the memory and the connection. Yes. Because we also say, people don't heal through just talking. Right. Healing happens through an experience.
There you go.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So it's the experience.
You bet. And those experiences, I think, parlay from the adventure-based stuff into, now we're talking about school and we're getting you through school. We're talking about, relationship stuff and those things. But it can start, one good day on the mountain can start some really good conversations. Yeah. And it's true for us in our work. And I do think it's true for families.
Yeah. So where do you see sports and mental health? Because again, oftentimes sports and mental health, we hear, the sports psychologist or basketball but this is different.
This is different.
You have created something very different. Yep. So where do you see sports and mental health going?
Yeah, I think sports in particular for adolescents, even team sports, is the gateway. I think it is an arena we can address mental health in a way that the adolescent will allow us. Yeah. So whether it is a little bit of sports psychology.
Say that again.
Okay. So it's the gateway which will allow for the adolescent to give us permission to engage it.
Yes.
If you say to a kid, I want you to go see a therapist, they'll go, what are you talking about? But if it's in the midst of sports and you're seeing anxiety and you say, I want you to work with a sports psychologist to get better at your sport, then they're like, So it can be an avenue which allows us. And I think it's a way for parents. It's a place where parents can say, yeah, that makes sense. So it's both on the front end, which will allow us to engage adults, but it's also in the treatment side.
Yeah.
I do not see a future in mental health that doesn't include experiential therapy or treatment. Yeah. You have got to be doing some sort of recreation, exercise, whatever it might be. So for adolescents, an adventure-based sport is the exercise we want that we know will change the brain.
Yeah.
We're not getting them to do jumping jacks, but we can get them to ride a hill. Right. We can get them. So not only is it the gateway to engage them that gives us permission, it can also be part of the treatment.
Yes.
And at Crossroads, the adventure-based, the sports that we've been doing has been as much part of treatment in healing brains, building confidence, building sense of self than any of the talk therapy we've ever done.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it is knocking out stigma.
Yes.
And that's why I said
key.
say it again.
Yeah.
Because again, when you have teens who say, this is what I want, and they are making the decision, They're not fighting us anymore about therapy or even sometimes, taking medication, which is always, most of the time for some teens, a big fight.
You bet.
But they are taking treatment. They are taking their own mental health into their own hands. Brilliant. And they are owning it.
Yep.
In my conversation with some of your students, I said, well, what are you going to do when you're discharged? Yeah. Do you want to come back here? Every last one of them said, I'm coming back here to work.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, really?
Yeah.
And they said, yeah, I'm coming back here to work. Yeah. And they talked about the benefits and not just the sports part, but about how their mental health is changing.
100%.
That was profound to hear a room of boys, teenage boys, say, no, I'm unashamed.
Yeah.
I am, I want to come back here and I not only want to work, but I want to be a resource for another boy or teenager who's coming behind me, who's struggling with their mental health or substance use.
What a change that would be in context to our field as a whole, right? Yeah. I mean, we're all experiencing, I think, and some of it rightfully so, of the unproductive treatment styles that kids 20 years ago experienced, right? I mean, we're all seeing some kids having had an opportunity to have treatment that were traumatized, right? And so as an industry, if we're not all taking a hard look at what that was or is, then it's probably a shame.
Yeah.
And so in that, though, to have kiddos right now, my kiddos right now, I have 10 past students working for me. They're not on Reddit complaining about their experiences. Yeah. They're here giving back. And to have current kids who aren't saying this is miserable and I hate this and you guys are, child trafficking me or these horrendous things, but they're like genuinely like, no, I'm better today than I was 2 weeks ago or a month ago. That is something we all could look at, and how do we do more of that?
Yeah.
And so for me, if it's through the sports, if it's through the connection in the sports, what do I care if a kid says I have a sports psychologist or if I have a therapist?
Yeah.
To me, I can do the same work. You can call me a coach. You can call me 1,000 things. Yeah. But if you allow me to help you with your mental health, let's go through that. And so, the stigmatism, the idea of that I have a say in it, that this could help me in different ways, right? Because we have put mental health into a component over here, but no, it is about your athletics. It is about your academics. It is about your relationships. So let's address it across all of those domains. I think is the way to the adolescent.
Yeah. And it's about being empowered.
I like that.
It's about being empowered to own your future,
there you go.
Your journey.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
So what are some of the challenges that you face, particularly in getting kids into the program? Is it insurance? Is it length of stay? Is it, based on length of stay because of insurance issues? What are some of those challenges?
Well, I think cost is a barrier to a lot of folks. So cost, it is expensive to run programming.
Right.
I think we are all looking at how can we do it better, faster, more efficient.
Yeah.
I think the days of 18 months of treatment and are just gone.
Right.
We're being asked and tasked to do it more effective, faster. And that's okay. Like, I think we can rise to some of that. So cost will always be a barrier. So with that is insurance.
Yeah.
Being in Utah, right? I mean, a lot of folks are out of network, but we are and have found with our short-term process, at least, that we're able to cross that barrier much better. We're getting a lot of things covered by insurance. We're getting longer periods of stay covered. And that's been a benefit to help folks that we just couldn't for a lot of years.
Right.
And so that piece is, I do think there is still an unawareness of what can be offered at a residential treatment place that I think is one that when I'm talking to a parent and I'm telling them some of the things we're able to do and how that looks, it's so dichotomous to what they've envisioned treatment to look like. And so that barrier of what people believe treatment is as compared to what it really is for us or can be, once the parent is like, oh, are you kidding me? What I hear, I want to come there.
Yeah.
I want to sign up. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And then if I'm able to talk to the student or the kid, there is way less resistance when I'm able to say, listen, no, you'll get here on Monday and it's snowed and we're going to go ski Tuesday morning. And then, we're going to play pickleball on Wednesday. And then Thursday, we're going to go to the indoor rock climbing. And by Friday, you're going to be really tired, as compared to I got 15 sessions.
Yes.
And I don't get to leave the campus. And, I can't even leave, the house for 2 weeks. Like, it's just so different, as you walk through the houses, you recognize that we created I think a very fraternity feel to it. And so we want it to feel comfortable. We want it to be less sterile, less hospital-like. Again, the closer we can create it to feel like home, to be like home, the better. So I think all of those things, but just the stigma of what residential treatment might look like, not just from kids, but from parents.
Absolutely.
It seems to be still a barrier to work through and overcome.
Yeah, so we still have more work to do to just help society as a whole reimagine therapy and what it is, what it can be, and also to make sure that we are being collaborative to knock out stigma, number one, but also to get over some of those hurdles or barriers like insurance, like payment, so still more work to be done. Yeah.
And I think this program collaboration, right, for us to be able to collaborate with programs across the country. And I think we found some solutions. Can I share those solutions with you? Can you share some of your solutions and the way you've overcome some struggles? And, I think collaboration amongst programming is going to be really important.
Absolutely.
There's enough work. We don't have to fight each other.
Yes.
We can help each other. So
Absolutely.
I've appreciated that and just your excitement for what we're doing and wanting to learn more about has been great.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the one thing you want teens and parents to know about sports and mental health? If you had to give the closing line before the curtains came down, what would be the one thing you want them to know?
I would go back to that idea that we can have normalcy through acuity. You can be struggling with this thing you're struggling with. You can be struggling with addiction. You can be struggling with mental health. And we can still have adventure-based experiences. We can still have normalcy in life. We can still experience joy even through hard things. And so for me, those opportunities to do those things while still doing hard work is the collaboration we've all wanted, right? It's what we need in life. Life's hard. It's difficult. And we all shoot for those days we can get up on the mountain or we get to go on vacation. And so I don't know that we've done the best in treatment to allow for some of those same experiences while kids are dealing with the hardest things in their life. And so if we can create more normalcy and adventure through acuity, I think we're going to be doing good. So that's what would be what I share is I want to go through this hard thing with you, but let's go fast and jump off some stuff too. And let's have some fun.
Let's have some fun.
Yeah.
Good. You know what? I think that is the perfect way to close.
Thank you.
When you said, let's climb up the mountain, let's have fun, reimagine this while we're doing the hard work. Awesome. And let's jump off some stuff.
Thank you.
So I appreciate your time. Again, I appreciate the work that you all are doing at Crossroads. I'm sure this conversation could have gone on for hours because there are some fantastic things that, again, you guys are doing, like the skate shop that we didn't even get to, right? But you guys are doing amazing work and your outcomes speak for itself.
I appreciate that.
That is the most important thing, the outcome, right?
I agree.
Whole life, sustainable change and healing. So thank you so much again. And we'll see you on the top of a mountain.
Cool. Thank you. That's awesome. So much fun. Thank you.